All right, ready to dive in?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
You wanted El Jaleo.
And we're ready to unpack it.
This painting, it's more than just a pretty picture, right?
It's a window, really, into a culture, a moment in time, and it still has people talking.
That's what makes a work of art really interesting, when it can still spark conversation over a century later.
And El Jaleo, well, it definitely grabs your attention.
Grabs your attention. That's an understatement, I think.
What is it about El Jaleo that you find so captivating?
Well, Sargent uses the entire canvas. I mean, this isn't some small, dainty painting you can just glance at and move on.
Oh, no. This is a statement piece.
Almost 12 feet wide.
Dominated by this single figure. You can't look away.
It's impossible to ignore, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And that's intentional. Sargent doesn't want you to just observe.
He wants to pull you right in.
Exactly. He wants you to feel the same energy and passion that this dancer embodies.
Like you're right there in that moment with her.
Front row seat to this incredible performance. And he's not holding back on the drama either, the way he uses light and shadow.
It's incredible, yeah. Our dancer, she's bathed in this spotlight. Her white dress, it practically glows, especially against the more muted background.
It's like he's using the light to sculpt the scene, leading your eye exactly where he wants it to go. And speaking of color, did you notice?
The way he uses it so specifically.
Yes. Mostly sticks to this monochromatic palette and then bam! These strategic bursts of red and orange.
It's true. It's subtle, but it makes a huge difference. It's like those pops of color are little explosions.
Kind of energy.
Like they're mimicking the rhythm of the dance. Speaking of rhythm, this whole painting seems to vibrate with it. Even though it's a still image, you know, how did he even begin to capture that?
Well, it all started with a journey. In 1879, Sargent traveled through Spain and North Africa. This wasn't a sightseeing trip for him, though. It was a deep dive into a culture that absolutely captivated him.
And the Romani people, their music, their dance, it really made an impression on him.
Especially their music and dance.
So that's where the spark for El Jaleo came
Yeah,
from. This wasn't just some random subject for him. It was something he felt deeply connected to.
Exactly. And you can see that passion in every brushstroke. Sargent spent an entire year planning and painting El Jaleo. An entire year.
A year? That's some serious dedication.
He filled sketchbooks with studies of dancers, experimenting with different poses and compositions, you know. He really wanted to get it right.
It's like he wasn't just painting a picture. You were trying to capture the very essence of flamenco.
And that's where it gets really interesting, I think, flamenco itself.
It's more than just a dance, isn't it?
It's this fusion of cultures. You've got Spanish influences, Romani influences, even Moorish influences all coming together.
Creating this incredibly passionate art form.
And Sargent was drawn to that.
So in a way, he wasn't just drawn to a style of dance. He was drawn to this whole cultural tapestry, this collision of influences that flamenco represents.
And he wanted to share that fascination with the world.
Well, he definitely made a statement with El Jaleo. Can you imagine? Being an art enthusiast in Paris in 1882.
Oh, to be a fly on the wall at the Paris Salon.
This massive, electrifying painting goes on display.
And everyone's talking about it.
It must have been like a jolt to the system, you know? This explosion of movement and color in the middle of all these, stuffy portraits and landscape.
Oh, absolutely. It definitely shook things up a bit. I mean, you can't talk about El Jaleo without talking about the reaction it provoked.
Oh, I'm sure opinions were mixed. That's the art world for you.
Right. Always sparks a debate or two. And El Jaleo, it was no exception.
So what were people saying? Did they get it? Or were they totally thrown by it?
Well, some critics, they absolutely loved it. They praised El Jaleo, called it a bold, even radical departure from the traditional art of the time. They were captivated by the energy, the way Sargent managed to capture this fleeting moment. It's like he froze time right in the middle of the dance.
It's true.
Yeah.
You really get that sense of being right there, caught up in the moment. Like you could almost hear the music, feel the floor vibrating beneath your feet.
That's exactly what Sargent was going for. He wanted you to experience the dance, not just look at it.
So who were the critics who weren't so impressed? What were they saying?
Well, there were those who found it a little too chaotic, too unconventional for their tastes. Remember, this was a time when many people, they expected art to be pretty, the light, you know, depicting noble subjects, serene landscapes, that sort of thing. El Jaleo, with its raw passion, it challenged those expectations head on.
Especially the focus on Romani culture. That wasn't exactly a common subject for fine art at the time.
Right. Sargent, he was breaking all the rules. And some people, they just weren't ready for it. They didn't know what to make of it.
It's like he was throwing open the windows, letting in a gust of fresh air, but not everyone was ready for that blast of energy.
A perfect analogy. But even those who weren't crazy about the subject matter, even they had to admit, Sargent, he was a master of his craft.
The way he uses light and shadow, the
Incredible.
brush strokes.
They're not just depicting fabric or a foot tapping, they're filled with this raw energy, like he's blurring the lines between what's real and what's suggested.
It's like he's saying, this moment is so alive, so bursting with energy, I can't possibly contain it within these neat, precise lines.
And that's part of what makes El Jaleo so captivating, even after all these years.
Not just a painting, it's an experience.
Yeah, exactly. It makes you want to get up and dance, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Or at least tap your foot a little.
It really does. There's this infectious energy that just pulls you in. You know what else is interesting? How Sargent, he doesn't put any barriers between us, the viewers, and the performance. It's like we're right there in the front row, completely immersed in the moment.
Brilliant observation. He does this in some of his other paintings as well.
Oh, really?
It's like he's rebelling against the traditional approach to painting.
Where everything is distant, idealized.
He wants to bring you right into the heart of the scene, make you feel like you're a part of it.
And he definitely achieves that with El Jaleo. There's something else that struck me about this painting. Something beyond the technique, beyond the energy.
The title.
Yes, El Jaleo. It's such a simple phrase, but it carries so much weight.
It does, doesn't it? What do you make of it?
Well, on the surface, it seems straightforward enough. It refers to the dance itself.
Right. But there's more to it than that, don't you think?
There's this other meaning, a connotation of lively chaos, a ruckus even,
A commotion, a jaleo.
which perfectly describes what we see on the canvas. This isn't just some graceful waltz. It's this passionate, almost frenzied outpouring of energy.
It's interesting, isn't it, how Sargent chose a title that captures both the beauty and the raw intensity of the dance, and that duality, it's reflected in the painting itself.
You have the grace of the dancer's pose, the elegance of her dress, but then you also have this incredible sense of movement, of controlled chaos.
And don't forget about those musicians in the background.
Their faces, they're hidden in the shadows, almost completely obscured.
But their presence, it's amplified by those bold strokes of red and orange. It's like they're providing the soundtrack to this explosion of energy.
It's like he's saying, this is flamenco. It's beautiful, yeah, but it's also intense, even a little bit chaotic.
And it's that raw energy that makes it such a powerful art form.
It really does. So much more than just technical skill, isn't it?
It's about expressing something deeper, something that resonates across cultures, across time periods.
Speaking of resonating across time, you mentioned earlier John Wayne's The Alamo. There's a scene in that movie inspired by El Jaleo. That's quite a leap, don't you think? From a 19th century Parisian art gallery to a Hollywood movie set.
It is, isn't it? Talk about unexpected connections. But yeah, John Wayne, he was a huge admirer of Sargent's work.
Really? I never knew that.
Oh, yeah. He was so captivated by El Jaleo that he actually vowed to recreate it on the big screen.
And he did. Wow. That's incredible. It just shows you the power of art to inspire, to transcend different mediums, different time periods.
It's a testament to how a powerful image can stick with you, even decades later.
Absolutely. But let's bring it back to us for a moment, to the viewers experiencing El Jaleo today. What is it about this painting, painted well over a century ago, that still speaks to us? Why are we still drawn to it?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? What makes a work of art truly timeless?
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
That something created so long ago can still evoke such strong emotions today.
Well, maybe it's the way Sargent captures this fleeting moment with such intensity that you feel like you're right there witnessing it firsthand. Or perhaps it's the cultural richness of the scene he portrays, this glimpse into a world that many of us, we might not otherwise encounter.
It's all of that, I think, but it's also more than that, isn't it? It's the way he makes us feel something. We're not just looking at a painting, we're experiencing it, that rush of energy, that surge of emotion. He pulls you into the dance, into that moment, and you feel its power.
And that's the mark of a true artist, wouldn't you say? To create an experience that transcends time, that continues to resonate with viewers generations later.
It really is. And, it makes you wonder what other works of art, whether it's a painting, a song, a film, even a beautifully crafted piece of furniture, have that same power to transport us, to make us feel something deeply, profoundly human. That's something to reflect on, isn't it? As we go about our day, encountering different works of art, listening to music, watching movies, what is it that speaks to us on that deeper level? What evokes a sense of wonder or joy or even a touch of melancholy that stays with you long after you've experienced it. That's the beauty of art, isn't it? It
Yeah.
sparks these questions, these reflections, these connections across time and cultures. Until next time.